A typical day, I guess the best way to say is there's no typical day. Nothing is typical here. You have to learn to go with the flow. So obviously, we have our own business, New Hope Substance Abuse and Domestic Violence Interventions. It's out of Middlesboro, Kentucky. We work with individuals who have substance use issues and addictions, and people who are ordered through the court system to attend education or treatment, and DUI offenders who have driven intoxicated, who need that substance use education before they're given a license back to get back on the road. So that's what we do, and thankfully it's allowed us to have a more typical day around the house because we kind of set our own schedule, and so sometimes that can change up based on the needs here. We also homeschool the kids, and we found that that's best for now. I don't know that it'll always be that way, but they have a lot of catching up to do. And they did start out in public school, and what we found was they were too far behind right now, and the schools are not always fully equipped to catch you up and to keep you on track. And sometimes they just need that catching up. And so we've decided to homeschool, and that's been what's best for our family right now. But sometimes that could look like early in the morning. Sometimes that's really late at night. It depends on how the day's going. And with homeschooling, there's a lot of things we can incorporate with homeschool, particularly with kids who have mental delay or special needs. There's a lot of the things that ain't in the school. How to care for yourself once you're an adult, how to pay bills, what does bills look like, how to manage money, not just doing math, but how do you truly manage money? How do you take care of a house? How do you cook? So outside of the subjects that you're, required to teach, there's also things that we've been able to incorporate just kind of naturally throughout the day.
I would say even with them having some delays, I would say in some ways they're perhaps maybe more advanced than typical in day-to-day stuff. Like we were saying, managing finances and practical things that you have to do day-to-day, when you graduate high school and start
at this point, in regards to their studies and subjects, they may be really behind, but they can tell you how to make food for themselves. They can tell you a lot about finances, like I said, and just a lot of common things that they'll need to know to be able to care for themselves one day. So whether they go off and, they become a doctor or a lawyer, or whether, they're kind of like more of us common people, they're going to know how to take care of themselves and be in real life situations, and even help the ones that are not going to be able to, their younger siblings who are not going to be able to do the things that they do. One of the things I get a lot is I want to adopt, and you find that a lot of people don't know what does that even mean. You want to adopt, what are you open to, what are you not open to? Do you want to do international, do you want to do domestic? Are you open to special needs or not? Do you want to do private? Do you want to do open, closed? There's so many aspects, and one of the main factors is cost. And so sometimes people can't do international because of cost. Sometimes they're surprised to learn that they can. There's adoption loans. There's different things that you can get with adoption, and it's not much different than if you decide you want to finance a vehicle or something like that. If you want it bad enough, there's ways to make it happen, even the costly part. But let's say you can't do it, or you don't want to go that route, or you want to stay local, or you want to stay even within the country. If you go through DCS, I guess the main point is that adoption is not guaranteed through DCS. Their main goal is reunification. So they're trying to get biological families on track to be able to parent, their biological kids or grandkids or whatever. Sometimes that's possible, and a lot of times it's not. But when it's not a short process either. Sometimes it can go through the court system for a really long time, and their parents have to prove they're just not going to be able to get back on track before they become available. But in our case, we did say, if you don't mind, when you call us with people, and they'll call you with all sorts of different types of placements, and you're allowed to say which ones you think you're a right fit for or not. But we did say, if you've got any that need permanency, or it's looking like this case is going to need permanency, I know you're not 100% sure, but send those our way. And every child that we fostered, we was able to adopt. So there's hope in that. You'll get a lot of, well, these kids are going to be taken from you. That wasn't our experience whatsoever. But you can't go into the foster care system saying, I want a baby. That can't be your only focus. I want a baby. I want the perfect baby. I want a female or a male. I'm not open to any needs. Teenagers need homes too. Middle-aged kids need homes too. Macy and Livy are biological sisters, and they came again through DCS, And an interesting story about that is we weren't seeking any more placements. We weren't seeking to adopt at that time, although had it in mind for the future. And a local family, just a county or two over, was fostering Macy and Libby. It was actually a preacher and his wife, and they had them for about 2 years. And this family fosters. They don't have experience in adoption and weren't seeking to adopt. They were only fostering. And so when they become available for adoption, DCS starts looking for families who are open to that. And so you don't just want to move them over to another foster family and then another one. You actually want to find permanency. So I found out about them actually through multiple sources. DCS, and then we had a local guy who had actually knew the family that was fostering them, and it got mentioned, and I thought, okay, and they don't have special needs, whereas, we have all of the other ones who have special needs. And I thought, okay, this might not be that bad. This might not be tough. They may blend in really, really easy, and we don't have to be prepared right now for new special needs or anything like that. We're ready for this. The only problem is it was a little bit of a battle. Our home, by state law, only had one opening available, and they were coming as a sibling set of 2. And so you can only have, and I don't know, this may have changed now, but it's 5 or 6 through DCS in the home at that time. And so initially we were met with resistance. There's 2 of them, and so you only have one placement. You're full. And then I just really felt, okay, they need a family, and nobody else is stepping up for these girls. Nobody else. The family that has them is not going to adopt. They're only interested in fostering. And so if we're open to them, and I'm not saying just send them here and let's work toward adoption. Well, send them here and see if they're happy here. Let them visit with us. Let us meet them.
Which is how the process went.
Yeah. Let us meet with them and see if it's going to work for everybody. It may not. But we did find a stipulation in there, where they don't want to split up siblings if they don't have to. And you can apply through the state for extraordinary circumstances type of thing. And so we eventually did get an approval to where if it was going to work, we could start visiting with both, and they would allow us to have an extra opening so that they didn't split the 2 up.
Thankfully, we had enough room for.
Yeah, we had room. We had means to care for them. There was no reason why it wouldn't work other than if they just wouldn't have been compatible with us or us compatible with them. So after a lot of hard work and convincing, we got to do visits with them. And again, a lot like Emerson, it was pretty easy. And they were in similar ages to all the rest of the kids at that point, and they enjoyed having so many kids running around and the freedom of it, and it was just quite easy. And I think they were kind of surprised how they naturally blended in, and it wasn't going to be some huge adjustment, and there never really was an adjustment.
One thing that we was slightly, we thought about and talked about a little bit is, they're biological sisters. And everybody always focuses on biological. And we thought, well, were they're biological, will there be that, they have a tendency to kind of isolate and cling to each other more than the other kids. And it's actually, it's not that at all.
Yeah, it's
biology,
it's not been a factor.
So, I mean, that I think that it kind of shows a little bit about biology and adoption, is that once you get together, once you get in a routine, that kind of goes out the window.
It really does. Part. And that's not to say it's not an important factor. But, DNA and love have nothing to do with each other. You can share DNA with a lot of people, and that doesn't always work out and guarantee loyalty and love and compassion and all the things you're going to need in life. And thankfully, God placed the right kids with us and gave us to them, and it was a good match because it just all worked out to where everybody's it's come together. And we even still get like, oh, this one looks like you. And people it's kind of strange because people just see us as a typical family in that sort of way. And that wasn't our work, that was God's work, is the only thing I know to say about it.
Just the other day at work, a client said, Luke was with me at work, and he said, you can't deny that one. Talk about how we look like. I went along with it, but a lot of people comment and say we resemble one another.
And with Reed, to get to Reed, he's our baby boy. He has cerebral palsy, he has polymicrogyria, schizencephaly, and he has microcephaly. And he was also born premature. So he has a lot of different brain conditions, and then he has the cerebral palsy. But he's almost 10 months old now, and he was born to a young teenage, actually 14, mother and father who just weren't prepared. There's really no bad situation, no bad story behind it. They just weren't prepared to take care of a baby. And there's an organization, Special Angels, who I was aware of, and we got an email from Special Angels with his photo in it, and it said this little boy is available, for adoption, and it just kind of worked out. I mean, it happened fast. It happened really, really quick. We found out about him, and like 2 weeks later, we were traveling out of state here in the United States to go meet him, and we brought him here when he was a little less than 2 weeks old. So he's been with us, and his adoption actually is not finalized yet. It could finalize anytime. He's under guardianship with us. Parental rights have already been, signed away. It's a for sure thing. Everything is, but again, they have to be in the home 6 months before you can adopt, and then even after the 6 months, you have to work through the court system and when they can, work out the paperwork and things like that. But
so 6 months oftentimes ends up looking like 8, 10, 12 months a lot of times, just because of the court process and stuff.
Yeah. And there's really no other, big story behind him. It was just kind of a inquiring with Special Angels and knowing about them and seeing the different situations. And before Reed...
Well, I think one thing was kind of profound is that there was, 10 other families or so who was interested and submitted to the family that they would like to adopt him, and they read biographies and that type of thing of the families, and for whatever reason they felt drawn to our family, and so they chose us.
I don't know the number. I don't know exactly how much it was, but the way the process works is families submit through Special Angels, and they kind of determine, is this family right for this child, and then they contact you. And so several families, a lot more than 10, inquired to Special Angels. And then Special Angels, I guess, kind of filters through it and then passes along so many to the family. And then the family was set to speak on the phone or kind of interview or whatever the families that they were going to decide on. And I'm pretty sure we were the first family they spoke with on the phone. And there was just an instant, this is where I want him to be. And it's been a whole new experience with us because he's been the tiniest so far. Medically, he's the most. He's been the most challenging in that regard, and it's been a new learning experience. But yeah, it's definitely been worth it.